Ford just went completely silent. Not for a holiday, not for maintenance. The entire production line, the one that runs 24 hours a day, 363 days a year, was shut down overnight. And what forced America's second-largest automaker to slam the brakes has the entire industry in panic mode. Picture it. Assembly lines that have roared non-stop for decades suddenly going completely quiet in the middle of the night. Workers showed up for their shifts to find gates locked, parking lots empty, and absolutely no explanation from management. This isn't a planned pause. This is Ford hitting the emergency stop button on billions of dollars in production. The official statement was a typical corporate brush-off about supply chain adjustments, but leaked internal memos tell a far more dangerous, frightening story, one involving a discovery so chilling it could force a massive recall on hundreds of thousands of vehicles already sitting on dealer lots, or even worse, already driving on the road. What did Ford find that was so dangerous it stopped everything overnight? To understand just how quickly everything unraveled and why so many Americans are now paying the price for corporate shortcuts, we have to start at the very heart of Ford's relentless machine. For generations, the thunderous roar of Ford's assembly lines has been the undisputed heartbeat of American industry. In places like Dearborn in Kentucky, the lights never went out. It was more than tradition. It was a promise that the line would keep moving, that paychecks would keep coming, and that the F-150, the country's best-selling truck and a national icon, would always be rolling off the line. But years ago, in the desperate race to build lighter, more fuel-efficient trucks, executives made a massive, high-stakes gamble. They decided to swap the traditional steel bones of the F-150 for aluminum. The move promised bragging rights on weight and cost savings at the pump, but it also silently chained the company's fate to a single, fragile material and, more importantly, a single supplier. By 2025, virtually every F-150 rolling out of their biggest plants wore this new aluminum skin. They were lighter, sure, but now utterly dependent on a steady, non-stop stream of high-grade aluminum sheet. Ford's own internal reports flagged the extreme risk, warning of a single point of failure hidden in plain sight. They knew the danger, but they kept chasing efficiency, shaving costs, and betting the entire company's future on that single stream. But that wasn't the whole story. The name of that single supplier and what happened next would bring the American truck industry to its knees. That single stream for Ford meant one company, Novelis. Industry insiders knew Novelis supplied close to 40% of all U.S. automotive aluminum sheet. But for Ford, the relationship ran even deeper, with the F-150, the Lightning, and the Expedition all drawing from the same crucial river of metal. There was no stockpile, no cushion. Every single truck depended on Novelis shipments arriving on time every single time. And then it snapped. On September 16, 2025, just before midnight, alarms blared through the Novelis aluminum plant in upstate New York. Inside the hot mill, where molten metal is pressed into the very skin of the F-150, a sudden flash became a massive fire. Firefighters from 26 departments raced in, but the heat was too much. The roof above the critical hot mill collapsed before dawn. The mill, responsible for turning out more than 25,000 tons of auto-grade aluminum every month, the exact material Ford needed, was instantly dead in the water. This wasn't a setback measured in hours. This was a blow that wiped out nearly 40% of the entire country's supply of auto aluminum in a single night. Ford's supply pipeline didn't just slow down, it was annihilated. And what happened next would shock everyone because the fire was only the trigger for the shutdown, not the true terrifying reason. While the heart of America's truck supply was still smoldering, the real crisis unfolded inside Ford's quality control labs. Buried in a string of urgent messages sent just days before the fire, engineers flagged a deeply disturbing pattern. Aluminum panels arriving from Novelis showed signs of stress fractures. These were hairline cracks nearly invisible to the naked eye, but potentially deadly in a severe collision. A leaked Slack message that later surfaced read simply, "We can't guarantee these panels will pass rollover crash standards if stress fractures appear." Emails bounced between engineering and procurement. Some marked high priority, warning that entire shipments might be compromised. The executives knew they were sitting on a ticking time bomb. Every truck already built with this suspect aluminum was a potential liability. The stakes were spelled out in a late-night memo. If we let these through, we're risking a recall on hundreds of thousands of vehicles. The shutdown wasn't just about missing parts. It was about frantically stopping a problem that could cost human lives and destroy the Ford name forever. But the boardroom had a terrible choice to make: $25 million in losses per hour or billions in future lawsuits. Inside Ford headquarters, the conference room lights burned late into the night. At the center of the storm sat COO Kumar Galhotra, facing a wall of staggering numbers. The choice was brutal: keep the line moving and risk the devastating billion-dollar recall and the potential for wrongful DMN lawsuits, or shut everything down and face an hourly financial bleed of up to $25 million. Galhotra, known for making hard, ruthless calls, finally gave the absolute order: every plant, every line, shut down now. The message went out in minutes. Workers with decades on the line showed up at 2 a.m. to find only security trucks blocking the entrance and yellow tape stretched across the main gate. The lot sat empty. Their only explanation came from guards. Plants closed. Go home. One foreman with 18 years under his belt told a local reporter, "I've seen strikes, snowstorms, even but I've never seen a blackout like this." For the men and women who built their lives around the rhythm of the F-150 line, the stillness felt like a profound betrayal by the company, a system that always found a way to keep moving until now. As Ford was bleeding cash and trust, their competitors were already circling like vultures. Ford's sudden silence was a starting gun for its rivals. In boardrooms from Detroit to Tokyo, the scramble was on to steal market share. Stellantis, the parent of Ram Trucks, moved with lightning speed. Their teams began quietly snapping up every available ton of aluminum on the open market, locking in spot contracts from Europe and Asia before Ford's gutted procurement teams could even get a bid in. General Motors called emergency meetings, shifting their aluminum allocations away from slower sedans to keep their high-profit Silverado and Sierra production on track. Every pound of metal was now a desperate bargaining chip, and Ford found itself boxed out of deals it used to dominate. But the quiet victor in this crisis was Toyota. Their decade-old just-in-time model, built with diversified suppliers and lean inventories specifically designed for shocks, shielded them almost completely. While Detroit's giants scrambled, Toyota's plants in Texas and Indiana kept humming, completely buffered from the chaos. For the workers and dealers left waiting, the sense of being outmaneuvered by boardroom suits on both sides of the Pacific was impossible to ignore. By the end of the first week, the panic had spread from the empty factory floor to the showroom. Dealers across the Midwest and Texas, desperate for inventory, looked at the handful of F-150s they still had and saw gold. Trucks that listed for $61,000 on Monday were suddenly marked up to $69,000 by Thursday. Some dealers slapped up to $8,000 in markups on the sticker prices overnight, quietly blaming limited availability in the fine print. Calls poured in from buyers who had put down deposits weeks earlier, only to be told their trucks were now on indefinite hold. One frustrated contractor from San Antonio vented to local news, "My truck was supposed to arrive Friday. Then they just said, indefinite hold. No one will say why." Analysts warned that if the shortage dragged on, F-150 prices could jump 15 to 25%, pushing the most popular work truck completely out of reach for countless Americans who rely on them to make a living. For ordinary people, the crisis wasn't an abstract supply chain problem. It was a punch to the wallet. They were caught between corporate panic and dealer greed, forced to pay the price for a risky decision made years ago in a glass tower far above their heads. Even local businesses near the plant, from machine shops to trucking companies, faced suspended contracts, leaving entire communities to wonder how long they could weather the silence. Here's the cold reality. Ford's relentless pursuit of efficiency led them to bet everything on a single fragile aluminum pipeline. That pipeline was severed by a fire, but the true shutdown wasn't about a missing part. It was about a secret, deadly engineering flaw, stress fractures that could compromise the safety of hundreds of thousands of trucks already on the road. The company decided to lose $25 million every hour rather than risk a colossal recall and the complete destruction of public trust. The immediate silence in the factories cost over $600 million in the first week, sent rivals scrambling to take market share, and handed buyers an enormous bill in the form of soaring prices. This wasn't just a supply chain hiccup. It was a brutal failure that revealed the weakness beneath the seemingly invincible backbone of American manufacturing.